Hey, what's up everybody? It's Joe Simpson. I wanted to talk about my new camera, the Lumix s5ii that I just purchased over the holidays. The Lumix s5ii is a small, compact, full-frame camera which is really loaded with a bunch of video features as well as photography features. It is the successor to the S5 and it has one major advantage over the S5 and a slew of other small advantages as well. First of all, it's compact and it's light. This is my G9, the original OG G9, and you can see that it's not a small camera, but it's not like overly large by any stretch. The s5ii is even smaller than that and lighter than that. It depends on which lens you put on it though. The camera has a 6K sensor and everything is sampled from that sensor, even the 4K video, the photography stuff, all that stuff. The other thing that this camera can do is what's called open gate, which is it can use the whole 6K frame to videotape with, which allows you to reframe that video later in a multitude of social media formats. This camera can also do what's called a 96 megapixel high resolution photo mode. It enables you to take super high resolution photos with a pixel shift technology. This would be very good for product photos. It has dual native ISO, and without going into a long explanation of what that is, suffice it to say that this camera is really good in low light, and the high ISO, the dual ISO, really enables it to get a great image. The in-body stabilization is probably second to none. The only camera I think that might be better is my G9. My G9 is intense. It really has a great in-body stabilization mechanism in there. I would say it's at least as good as the s5ii, maybe even still better, but the s5ii is awesome. You won't have any problems with stabilization with this camera. It's a robust weather-sealed body, so you're not going to have much trouble with inclement weather, some raindrops and things like that, so you're going to really do well in the outdoors. You just have to be careful which lens you pick because they're not all weather-sealed. I'd say the big leap that this camera made finally was the autofocus system. The autofocus system prior was I think it's a phase detect autofocus system, which was okay from the Lumix. The G9 was actually quite good for a phase detect. This uses a CMOS dual pixel autofocus system now, which enables you to do things like this, show products, and it changes focus really fast. I even have mine set to a little slow transition so it's not so jumpy, but you can see it just grabs focus to anything in the near and then it will go right back to my face. And you can adjust the focus system on this in a myriad of ways to be less sensitive, more sensitive, whatever you need. It also has quite a versatility in connection options. It has a full-sized HDMI, which is great. You're going to have less problems with that breaking down the road. It's got a mic audio in. I think it has monitoring for headphones, I think. Most of those connections sit in front of your flippy screen when you flip it out, so that's a little bit of a hassle, but no big deal. It's kind of the way it is. And if you're going to rig out your camera that way anyway, you're probably going to put a monitor on top of your camera. The camera supports V-Log, so you can record in a higher dynamic range and do more color grading later, but honestly, I find videotaping in natural, presetting my white balance, and being careful with my exposure, I get a perfect image out of this thing without even doing a whole lot of grading. The touch screen is awesome. It's very sensitive. The menu in the Panasonic and the Lumix cameras is second to none. I really like the format. It seems to fall on both sides of the fence. People have either gotten used to the Sonys and they prefer it, or they use the Lumix cameras and they just rave about it. So it's really personal preference, but you're not going to have a problem with this menu. It's very intuitive and easy to follow. It has a high resolution viewfinder, and it really is nice to look through that viewfinder, and it will show you what you see is what you get from a camera photography standpoint, and that's really nice. So to be able to put your eye up to something and be a little more subtle with your shots is helpful. Having a good viewfinder helps with that. The Lumix s5ii supports dual card slots. Now it's not going to be the CFast or whatever those are, but it will be the SD of the higher ilk. So you have several options in the ways you can set up your dual card slot. You can have one card recording video, one card recording photos. You could have both cards recording the same thing at the same time. That way, if one card fails, you have a backup card. You can have one card filling up, and when it gets full, you can have the overflow go to the second card. So you have a couple of choices and a safeguard recording system if you want it. For photo capabilities, I would say this is very capable. It has a fast burst speed of 7 frames per second, which isn't hugely fast, but it has an awesome 24 megapixel sensor. It picks up great detail. It's easy to crop in on. There's quite a few lenses available in the L mount range. There's going to be more down the road, but the ones that are available now are excellent. As far as video recording, you can record up to 10-bit 422 color space up to 4K, 30 frames and 24 frames a second. Once you go 4K 60 frames, which will give you slow-mo capabilities, it does crop into the APS-C size, which isn't horrible. It just is going to change your framing a little bit when you go to 60 frames per second. Now, note is the G9 does not crop on 4K 60. It stays the same, so that's kind of cool. So I kept this one around because I like this for B-roll. Matter of fact, all the B-roll that you see in this video was filmed with the G9. Also, when you record in the 6K open gate format, I think you're limited to 420 color space, but I think the 6K open gate is such high resolution that it's so forgiving and so easy to work with, people don't really mind the difference in color space. This has a built-in fan for heat dissipation, which will allow it to record for long periods of time without overheating. As a matter of fact, I've heard no issues with anyone talking about this camera overheating in any situation. So if you have one of the Sony cameras that overheats or a Canon camera that overheats, you won't have a problem with this camera. There is a wide range of lenses available. You can go all the way from 18mm prime all the way up to, like, I think they just came out with 100mm prime, everything in between. We're talking 18, 24, 35, 50, 85, 100, and those are all in the Lumix line. And what's cool about those primes is they're all the same exact size, same lens cap. You could use one ND filter for all those primes. I also picked up a 28 to 70 Sigma zoom lens, which has the same threading as all those primes. So it's really nice that they're trying to keep things organized and kind of uniform. Now, there aren't many third-party manufacturers making the L-mount stuff yet, but I'm sure it's to come. This camera and Leica have kind of joined in and made this L-mount alliance, so I think you're going to see some awesome glass for some great prices coming out very soon for these cameras. This camera does have face eye detection. It does seem to stick to things pretty well. Sometimes it's a little annoying when you have face and eye on and you're trying to do like a product demo and you go something like this and it's trying to hold on to the face behind and it catches your eye. Like if you have something up like this, let's say you change focus and you move it to the side. Sometime when you have face and eye on, when I don't have it on at this time, it'll jump back to my face when I don't want it to. So you have to be cognizant of what your camera is trying to do. It is actually quite smart. So if you set it up the right way, it's going to act the way you expect it to. One of the best things about Lumix cameras is the customization. You can go into this menu and do a deep dive, and there's all kinds of like buttons all over these cameras. There's like a couple here, all these, all the buttons on the back of Lumix cameras can be mapped out to a different function. So what I do is I make all the buttons on this camera and all the buttons on my S5 II do the same thing. So when I'm trying to bounce around and change ISO or jump in and look at a graph or something like that, it's the same place with the same button on both cameras, and it makes it consistent. The only problem you're going to run into is if you use somebody else's camera and it's set up different, then you'll be a little off kilter. Another big step for the Lumix camera, which I did notice in the G9, was their color science. The Lumix colors used to be a little on the green side. The color science on this camera is really nice to work with. It seems to render colors perfectly. Another feature that I like is it has Bluetooth and high-speed Wi-Fi, so you can transfer your photos from your phone to your computer all different ways. That comes in really handy, especially if you're traveling and you want to empty off a card. You can stick it all on your phone. You can even edit the photos on your phone and throw them up for preliminary viewing or share them onto Google Drive or something like that. Another big feature for Panasonic and Lumix is their commitment to firmware updates. That's one thing I've noticed about this company is it seems like every 2 to 3 months, all the way up until the end of life for their cameras, they're just popping out these firmwares. I'm always and constantly behind in firmware updates on the Lumix cameras, which is a good thing because that means they're putting them out a lot, they're fixing issues, they're listening to the customer, and they're just doing what they can to make a better product. A couple reasons that I decided to buy this Lumix was, first of all, the feature set and its capabilities. Second of all, it's full frame. The other reason was price. I was able to get this camera before Christmas for about $18.75, I think the price was. I was able to get this 50mm lens that came with the kit. So you can see this nice Lumix 50mm. Get the lens off there. Really light lens, very capable. It has an f1.8. It's excellent for portrait photography. It's super light. And I also got the Lumix 20 to 60, which is actually a great lens. I decided to sell that and buy the Sigma 28 to 70, but honestly, you could hang with the 20 to 60 Lumix and do just fine. The 20 to 60 has an f-stop of 3.5 up to 5.6, depending on how you're zoomed in. But the Sigma 28 to 70 is a f2.8 all the way through. And I really like having that constant aperture. It's better for video, and the whole f2.8 aperture is going to be better for low light situations. So for now, for me, I think I'm set for a while. I get wide enough at 28 mil. I get far enough out at 70. I'm not doing a lot of like zoom and close-up shots. And if I needed to do some like photography for like animals and birds and things, I'd probably grab the G9 with a less expensive zoom lens for the Micro Four Thirds system and use that. But this is going to be more video centric for me. Yeah, I think the 28 to 70 and the Panasonic 50 mil is going to be a good starting point. I can cover a lot of bases with this. The only thing I might want to do one day is get a little wider for vlogging. But quite honestly, I think the G9 or even my Canon SL2 with a pancake lens is going to be better for vlogging due to weight. The Lumix is hardcore. It's built really nice. It's a little chunky, can be a little heavy if you're holding it out vlogging. So I don't think I'm going to vlog with it that much, but I'll probably do small portable tripods, tabletop, this kind of thing a lot with this camera. It's not impossible to carry around and do things with. It's just heavier than my SL2, which is like featherweight. So I just wanted to go over some of the things that I liked about the Lumix s5 II. If you're looking for a new camera, get a chance to check this one out because it's a keeper. I think I'm going to be good with this camera for years, 4 to 5 years at least. Thanks for watching the channel. I appreciate you guys, and hopefully this was helpful for you if you're trying to make your decision on what camera to buy next.